everybody. Before we begin our town board meeting, we're going to pay special honor and tribute tonight to two different groups of people. First, we are honoring our Lady Bruins, and we thank you for joining us this evening. We are so thrilled to commend you. Please stand, Lady Bruins. And special thanks to coaches Tom Catapano, Anthony Bolden, Mike Butler, and athletic director Ed Ramirez. Sorry. For the second year in a row, the Baldwin girls basketball team is state champions, taking home the state federation title after beating undefeated and top-ranked Christ the King. You went in the underdogs. You took on the #1 ranked team in the state, players that were bigger and taller, and you outworked, outplayed, and outperformed them. Isn't that a great feeling? And they go without saying, but you're a great credit to your families, to your school, and to all of us here in the town of Hempstead. And we are so thrilled to share this victory with you. So as you continue to grow and flourish in your athletic and your academic careers, know that the same determination and gift that you displayed on the court can be applied to every other aspect of your life. No challenge is too great or any obstacle insurmountable. So in recognition of your outstanding achievements and for the great honor and richness that you bring to our town, we are presenting each of you here tonight with a certificate and a certificate for your team as well. And we look forward to seeing you in victory again next year. Now I will turn the microphone over to Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, who shares the district of Baldwin and would like to say a few words.
Extremely happy, and certainly I'm not one who pays that much attention to sports, so to speak. I'm not one who sits down at the television and watch games, but believe me, I watch you girls. And I was so proud, and I just can't say enough of you. You are really the recruits. You are it. And I certainly know that our world is going to be a better world because of people like you who work well together and who care so much for each other. That is so important. Team spirit is what it's all about, and that's what's going to make our world a better world. So I congratulate you, your parents, and certainly to your wonderful people who work so hard. They get paid a lot of money for all the work that you do. So God bless you, and just keep it up. Keep that team spirit. That's so important.
I'll be very brief and just say congratulations. We are all very proud of you, and it is without a doubt that you make Hempstead Town America's largest township, not only the largest, but the proudest. God bless you guys.
Thank you. There's a lot of Baldwin pride in this room today. I have the privilege of representing Baldwin for the last 3 years. And the supervisor grew up in Baldwin, the county executive is from Baldwin, and the three of us proudly represent Baldwin, and we're really honored to do it. Just keep it up. It's great to see all this girl power.
So now we have the team and the coaches to come up for a photo and to present you with the citation.
more. And one last one for me. Right there. Ready?
Well, in addition to the Lady Bruins, we'd also like to recognize our Regeneron Scholars from Hempstead Town. We'd like to welcome students, family, teachers, and principals. Every year, the town of Hempstead has an extraordinary showing in this national competition, as well as the Siemens Westinghouse competition. We are very proud that Long Island captured 46 scholar slots, and 4 of those were from the town of Hempstead. For almost 2 decades, the competition, known formally as the Intel Science Search Contest, recognized the nation's most talented high school scholars. This science talent search competition for high school students has been renamed the Regeneron Science Talent Search Contest. Young innovators chosen to participate in the science talent search over the past 74 years have gone on to win 7 Nobel Prizes, 2 Fields Medals, 5 National Medals of Science, 11 MacArthur Foundation Fellowships, and even an Academy Award for Best Actress, which was Natalie Portman. The scholars each received $2,000 in recognition of their scientific achievements. The schools where scholars attend will also receive $2,000 per semifinalist. We are happy to recognize the scholars with us this evening from the town of Hempstead and present certificates. I'd like to ask Councilwoman Erin King Sweeney to present those from the John F. Kennedy High School.
I'd like to call up Matthew and Cameron. I had the opportunity to meet these wonderful gentlemen earlier tonight, and they tried to explain to me what their projects were. I could barely grasp it, but really wonderful, exciting things ahead of you. And as I told you and your teachers and all the people here supporting you, we really expect great things from you, and we hope that you'll come back after your big ventures in college and beyond to be able to give back to the town of Hempstead, because we need a lot of young, smart people in the town of Hempstead. We got to do all that we can as a government and a community to encourage people like you to come live with us. So congratulations, I wish you all the best.
Our next honoree, if I could call upon Councilman Bruce Blakeman, he shares the 5 towns with me. Next gentleman is from Hewlett High School. Again, representing Hewlett High School, there was actually 2 individuals from Hewlett. One could not be here tonight, but joining us with his principal and his family, Justin Ning.
What? How are you? You alright? Yeah.
Can I hang my coat on this? Looks like a nice hanger.
You're like tight now, so.
All right, once again, a round of applause for our Regeneron Scholars and also our leading viewers.
Okay, good evening again, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this regularly scheduled town board meeting. For those of you who have never attended a town board meeting before, we will first have public hearings, followed by an administrative calendar. There are meeting agendas in the rear of the pavilion, and if you wish to be heard on any matter, please go to the rear of the pavilion, fill out a slip, which you can obtain from a public safety officer. After the meeting is adjourned, the town board will follow our custom of 315 years to hear any residents that would like to address the board on other matters. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Supervisor. Councilman Ambrosino?
Here.
Councilman Blakeman?
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
I am here.
Councilman Dunn?
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? And Supervisor Gillen?
Here. I'd ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like Senior Councilwoman Gooseby if you'll lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the first public hearing?
Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Belmore, Seaford, and Wantagh.
I have no slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? Supervisor Gillen?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the second public hearing.
Before we do that, I think we have to close the hearing and make the motion, so I make that motion. Close the hearing. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
So it's
thank you,
fine.
Councilman. Second? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the second public hearing?
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Belmore, East Meadow, Merrick, Seaford, and Wantagh.
I have no slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard?
Make a motion to close the hearing and vote on the item.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino? Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito? Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? And Supervisor Gillen?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the third public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in Merrick.
I have no slips on this matter. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move this hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the next public hearing?
Proposed local law regarding traffic regulations in the vicinity of schools in North Belmore.
I have no slips on this matter. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Make a motion that we close the hearing and adopt the item.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the next public hearing?
Proposed local law insofar as to amend Section 86-39 dealing with revocation and suspension of master plumber's licenses, add Section 86-40 dealing with hearings, findings, recommendations, and actions on master plumber's licenses, add Section 86-41 dealing with civil penalties for doing unauthorized plumbing work, amend Section 86-42 dealing with restrictions on master plumber's licenses, and amend Section 86-44 dealing with public liability and property damage insurance for master plumber's licenses.
Nicely done, Madam Clerk.
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
I have a number of slips on public hearing number 5. Felix Prachi.
Felix Prachi, 1165 Dawn Street, Franklin Square. Okay. First, on this law, it wasn't noticed properly. I brought up the fact it wasn't on the website on March 5th, which is the tradition. It doesn't have to be there on March 5th, but the law, the details of the law per New York State Code, it's supposed to be a reasonable amount of time prior to the hearing. I just noticed it wasn't posted, and while I was talking to Mr. Amarini, asking him if it was posted, it all of a sudden appeared. So during the day, that March 5th resolutions was adjusted, but it's not, I got to read it, I didn't really get to go over it much, just happened a few hours ago. I think if you're going to follow the law, which is important to me, that this hearing should be postponed and properly noticed so it gives adequate time. Also, changing the resolutions from March 5th is not really fair to people because someone looking at it, an hour before would not have seen the law, and then he posted it, and there's no indication that, that those resolutions were changed. But, I agree with the thrust of the law. It's important that we have qualified people, that no one should be using other people's license if they're not qualified. But I think it wasn't done per the law. On item number 24, procurement.
We're only talking about...
I thought I was administrative calendar. I'm sorry. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prachi.
Mr. Rock, can you give us an opinion whether or not that was properly noticed or not?
I will have to check with the clerk's office and look at the notice of publications. I believe it was. I know I saw it. I have no reason to think Mr. Prachi would be incorrect, but I did see a valid notice of publication. So I'll check on it. If it's not, we can pass it tonight, and we'll just have to do it again in 2 weeks if it wasn't properly noticed.
Robert Graham.
Supervisor Gillen, council people. I've been a master.
Can you please take a seat at the table and state your name and address for the record?
That is confusing. I don't know why that's there.
My name is Robert Graman. I'm a licensed master plumber in the town of North Hempstead. I've been an examining board member, the Nassau County for over 30 years. We've been master plumbers since the 70s.
Would you excuse me, sir, would you put just a little closer to you? Okay.
I've been a licensed master plumber since the 70s, and I commend the board for taking this initiative. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Cornetto.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Cornetto. I'm the owner of Cornetto Brothers Plumbing and Heating in Elmont, New York, and I am also the current president of the Long Island Plumbing and Heating and Cooling Contractors Association of Long Island. I would like to thank Councilwoman Erin Sweeney for sponsoring this bill, and I would like to thank the council for voting on it tonight. My cousin, the late Ed Cornetto, was a plumbing inspector for the town of Hempstead for over 25 years. Quite often we spoke about the responsibilities of plumbers. The licensed plumber is responsible in ensuring that the drinking water in your homes is clean, safe, and potable for consumption. The licensed plumber is responsible in removing the sewage and waste from your homes safely and properly. The licensed master plumber is responsible for installing and servicing natural gas equipment. Every day, licensed plumbers deal with not only natural gas, waste and water, we deal with methane gas, carbon monoxide, mold, asbestos, and Legionnaire's disease. Cousin Eddie often joked that if the average homeowner walked a day in our shoes, they wouldn't question our rates. Work being done by a licensed master plumber that is not done properly, people can get hurt, and properties can get damaged. I would like to thank everybody for voting on this bill tonight. People that do plumbing work illegally should be prosecuted, and I would hope that that is a statement. I have a statement here written by the PHCC in support of this bill, and I would like it to be handled to the council. Thank you.
Yes, let me just say that I knew Ed, he's a fine gentleman.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, I have Andrew Frank.
Good evening.
Good evening. If you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Frame, 5 Coast Lane, Glen Head, New York. As a certified building inspector and a member of the Building Inspectors Association of Nassau County, I can attest to the problems that we have in the field when people do work under other people's licenses. Creates situations that are potentially dangerous for our homeowners, especially in an age of changing technologies. And I do think that what you're embarking on here is a good cause, and it will greatly help increase safety for our homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard on this?
Good evening, Leonardo Baldwin resident. I also commend those who were involved with this legislation. I am just concerned that we have maybe just not included a wider range, and I'm just curious as to, as mentioned earlier with Mr. Prachi, the time of notice, particularly for individuals to be able to get access to the information and the supporting material and things of that nature. And as far as the implementation, all this sounds great on paper, and I know it makes for great photo ops, but as far as the implementation, who would be handling the actual oversight? Who is responsible for the hearings? Where is that, what is it all at? Is there a feasibility study that ties into that as far as the cost Are we looking at increasing the number of individuals who would go to the various sites? I mean, you know, we definitely need to have quality plumbers, but we have issues with roadwork engineers. If anybody else is having issues with potholes besides me, roofing, there's a lot that goes into licensing. So why are we just stopping at plumbers?
Mr. Kovitz, do you?
The building department and the plumbing board will handle the implementation of this law.
On top of the work that they're already doing?
Correct.
Without any increase? I'm just curious because I don't really want to have to be at a budget hearing and then find out that, you know, this was passed and this is what was understood. So I just want it clear. Are you saying that there's no fiscal responsibility?
I think the plan is for now that the building department and the plumbing board will handle it. And if it turns out that they need additional employees, the board will have to look at that.
So you're saying basically you don't know what the fiscal impact is, yes or no?
I don't think it has a fiscal impact. They think they can handle it, so we'll have to see.
We're not allowing people to borrow other people's licenses anymore. They have to have the proper licensing. It's a review by the board, Department of Buildings.
Okay, I understand that, but again, things are happening on sites, on home sites, on construction sites, so again, who is monitoring this for the effectiveness?
I think the issue is that with respect to using a license for the plans or using a license to actually do the work, we're equipped with the current staff that we have to enforce those aspects of it. I'm not aware of any fiscal impact whatsoever, that this would be done in-house and that it would be done with our current staff. Is somebody from the building department that can shed some light on that?
Because I'm just curious as to the fact that we're using the current staff. This problem came up with the current staff that we have. So how would that have been circumvented how's this going to be addressed in the future if we're dealing with the same staff?
There was no regulation barring it before. Now there'll be a regulation barring it. So then it wasn't like they weren't enforcing something, but now there is a regulation to enforce.
Correct. Good evening, Supervisor, members of the town board. Yes, there will be no financial impact on the town of Hempstead putting forth this regulation. A lot of it has to do with insurances, to make sure that the insurances are increased so that if there is a problem, they light someone's house on fire using a torch and stuff, that they have the higher insurances. That's just paperwork that's filed with us through their insurance company. As far as the board, if we catch someone who is doing it illegally, covering someone, then the board can bring them in and then certain things we can now take care of. So there is no financial impact on the town of Hempstead.
Okay, but you mentioned increased insurance. That means the plumbers themselves now will have to pay an additional fee or charge or something?
Well, what they'll have to do is, a lot of them already have that high requirement as far as the insurances are concerned, to protect themselves and their company. So they just have to supply that to the town of Hempstead, which most already do.
Okay, so really this is just a matter of filling in the gaps and, as you say, put some enforcement on paper. Okay, well thank you. As I said, I'm just hoping that we can look across the board as far as other aspects of the licensing issue and oversight. If we're going to put this in there for something like this, then let's look at everything.
As a matter of fact, I understand that the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner Novello are looking into other fields to do this, including electricians.
Yeah, I think definitely for electricians, but if nothing else, road work. We pay a lot for the roads that are not getting repaired, so road work engineering needs some oversight from somebody. It's costly and it's costing a lot of residents who have to get their cars repaired, but yeah, definitely. House safety is something that, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that the public needs to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard?
Good evening. Art Gibson, Plumbers Local Union 200, 2123 Fifth Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York. Good evening, Supervisor, members of the board. I'd just like to thank you for moving forward with this bill. I represent the plumbers, the union plumbers on Long Island, and you've all witnessed several guys come up that are that are not affiliated with the union, and we're on the same page with this. So this is not something that's a union thing against a non-union thing. We're all in this together. And what we're trying to accomplish here is to get that unscrupulous guy out there who's taking advantage of the system, driving down wages for all the legitimate guy. I can tell you, for one example of one of my larger contractors, he spends $50,000 a month before he turns a light on in his shop, just in workman's comp. So to compete with the guy that is non-licensed, non-insured, has nothing, a van, picks up 2 or 3 people at Home Depot or whatever, has his relatives working for him, that's irrelevant. This is a good law, and I really appreciate it. This will go island-wide after it leaves here. The largest town in the nation does this. This will send vibes throughout the state of New York. I commend you all for doing this, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard on this public hearing? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the hearing be closed and am adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Casino.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Honored to stand with the plumbers, and I enthusiastically vote aye.
Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Proposed handicap parking on public streets in East Meadow, Elmont, North Belmore, and Uniondale.
I have no slips on this item. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to close the hearing, and we vote on the item.
Second motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Casino.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Authorizing the conveyance of a parcel of vacant land with structure for rehabilitation pursuant to the Urban Renewal Plan for the Roosevelt Housing Improvement Area to Habitat for Humanity in Nassau County Housing Development Fund Company, Inc. in Roosevelt.
I have a few slips on this item. John Moss.
Good evening.
Good evening.
John K. Moss, PC, 100 Garden City Plaza, Garden City, New York. I'm outside counsel for the Department of Planning and Economic Development. We're here today to support the adoption of this contract with Habitat for Humanity. The property itself was actually developed at Phase 8 of the Housing Improvement District in Roosevelt. We later had to reacquire the property because the owner has passed away. There is a requirement that owners stay there for 10 years. She passed away beforehand. There was a mortgage on the property as well that we had declared null and void because it exceeded the purchase price, and we had some restrictions in our deed. We undertook the reversion of title after the foreclosure action started. I advised the foreclosure judge of what was going on, and we successfully got a judgment which reverted title to the town and voided out the excessive mortgage. I'm certain the town knows, the board knows about Habitat for Humanity. They do some wonderful work. We've actually transferred or conveyed vacant parcels of land to Habitat in the past that they've developed. They have a selection process that mirrors our selection process for first-time home buyers for the affordable housing program. The contract has all those provisions in it. There's a covenants and restrictions in there as well to make sure that there's some enforcement there, that they follow basically their own procedures, and also some provisions in the contract with regard to the use of volunteer labor, which is basically how they build the houses. This is a rehab. It's not a whole building. Hopefully they'll be able to turn this around relatively quickly, get it into a first-time home buyer's hands. And, we'll actually have, instead of an abandoned property, we'll have somebody actually living there and really pin down the neighborhood. We do have two members from Habitat, Lauren Suma and Jeremy Honig, hear if there are any questions about the habitat itself, and I certainly can answer any questions about the program or the contract.
Thank you. Wilhelmina Bundaberg?
Good evening. Wilhelmina Bundaberg. I reside at 156 East Clinton Avenue, Roosevelt. I've been there for 50 years. What I really want to question about number 7 is that most times when homes rehab are built, they're supposed to be for one family. They start out being one family when they come in and get approved. But when people move in, it's always more than one family. And I'd like to know, how are we going to make sure that this is a one-family resident and that it's going to remain a one-family resident?
Mr. Moss?
Good. Yeah, we have some deed restrictions in there, and in fact, one of the deed restrictions is that it's going to be a single-family house. It's got to be owner-occupied. That's the reason why we actually required the property, because there's no owner on the premises. So if it's a multifamily, we're going to get that property back. I know Habitat also has some restrictions on, single-family houses.
Are you going to be the one that's going to be the final words that says move these people out when you find out that there's more than one family in there?
Well, I'm not the final word, but I can certainly undertake to do that. We've already successfully got the property back when there wasn't the owner was not living there. So if there's going to be a multifamily, number one,
It's going to be a multifamily. Okay, that's why I'm here. Because every house, and like I said, I've been there over 50 years. And I mean, now there's so many families in our neighborhood that's supposed to be one family. You can't even get down the street with so many cars. Because not only a one family resident, you might have 2 or 3 cars. But now you have 5, 6, 7, 8. You can't even get to the street. So that's why I'm asking, are you going to be the one, who's going to be the one to make sure that this remains a one family home? Because I'd like to get the name and see I check it.
okay. I'm not an enforcement officer for the town. I'm the attorney, and we have some restrictions in the deed. There are enforcement officers, I believe, building department.
We have code enforcement officers in our building department, so that if it comes to our attention and we investigate and we find out, then we would maybe let Mr. Moss know and he could take the requisite action. Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this item?
Good evening, Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. As you know, Uniondale has a Uniondale Community Land Trust, and we're hoping that if property were to become available in Uniondale, you will keep us in mind for this similar type of situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this item? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that we approve the authorization.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakely. Councilman D'Esposito. Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilwoman King Sweeney. And Supervisor Gilbert.
Aye.
I'd like to thank Habitat for Humanity because they do a lot for people, especially low-income families, husbands, wives, children, and normally keep their word, and they do very, very well. It's all done with volunteer labor.
Yes, the town is very The town is very happy to partner with Habitat for Humanity on this very important project. Thank you. That concludes our public hearings. Madam Clerk, will you please call the administrative calendar?
Supervisor, there are items 8 through 47 on the administrative calendar. I also have 2 resolutions of an urgent or serious nature. The first resolution is a resolution calling a public hearing on April 24th, 2018 to consider the petition of Dika Associates, LLC for a pilot on property located at 2870 Grand Avenue in Baldwin, New York. This is a companion resolution to resolution number 47 on tonight's calendar. The second resolution is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a proposal from Tiburon, no, sorry, that's Spanish, from Tiburon Inc., a Tritech software systems maintenance contract for the Department of Public Safety.
These will be items.
These will be items 48 and 49 on tonight's calendar.
Thank you. Are there any council members who'd like to sever any of the items on the administrative calendar? Hearing none, may I have a vote? Again, are there any council members who'd like to sever any of the items on the administrative calendar? Okay, may I have a motion on the administrative calendar?
I move items 17, 18, 24, 30, and 36 postponed indefinitely.
Repeat that.
17, 18, 24, and 30. I'm sorry, 36. And 36, I apologize.
17, 18, 24, 30, and 36. To be postponed indefinitely.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakely. Councilman Diaz-Fazito. Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. I have a number of slips on the administrative calendar, starting with Felix McClatchy. May I have a motion on the administrative calendar now?
I move to adopt items 8 through 50, excluding items 17, 18, 24, 26, and 30. 36, I'm sorry.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Blakeman.
You voted to sever the items that listed. That was the first vote?
Not sever.
Table. So 24 is off, right?
Yes.
28 is off? Okay, what are the fee increases? It only, in the resolution, only gives the current, the new rates. It doesn't provide what the old rates were.
I know. Is Commissioner Neal here?
If I may, I'm sorry, if I may, Commissioner, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know that part of item 28 is the legislation for the making sure that the nonprofits, the Little Leagues, the seniors, and the youth organizations are permanently waived in their fees. Prior in the legislation, there was room for discretion, and after the issues that have occurred, I asked that they be specifically named so that there was no discretion involved. The only way that these youth organizations, the Little Leagues or the nonprofits, would be charged for field use would be to obviously rescind or change this legislation.
Yes, you're correct.
So in essence, Felix, the fees aren't changing. It's just specifying in the legislation who is permanently exempt from fees on the fields, as long as they can provide documentation that they are in fact a 501c3, a Little League, or a nonprofit.
I just wanted to show me where that is. It wasn't in the legislation that was online.
The one that I have has it.
At the bottom, it is in there. Field appropriation fee per league for certain leagues. At the bottom, it's reflected there.
Okay. Is there any reason why you're just exempting leagues that are non-for-profit? How about a league that doesn't have a club that's a non-for-profit? Like they don't have a that it's a legal thing to get a non-for-profit.
Right, it's a tax certification.
Yeah, but there could be a league that,
as long as if it's a Little League, for instance, I mean most of them are not-for-profit, but if they don't have their 501c3, as long as they're registered with the National Little League, it'll be confirmed by the Parks Department.
okay.
This is just to secure that at no time can fees all of a sudden come upon Little Leagues without this legislation changing.
And I get it. I read the paper about the Nassau County legislation.
And we haven't been charging these fees, so we're not even giving something up. We haven't been charging these fees historically.
Okay. Okay. And so everything else is staying the same. You're saying all these others, there's no increase.
Nothing's changed. Yeah, basically the point of this, Felix, is to make sure that no nonprofit, no league, no Little League, no football team all of a sudden gets surprised with a $14,000 field bill. The only way that that would happen is there would be, an announcement and it would be voted on.
In fairness, that the way they wrote it up in the paper was not really, that league has 60 teams, so it might have amounted to $20 per person. If they put it in some sort of context, that's not like really a lot of money, and I guarantee you the Seaford Wanda school districts will have more than a $20 cost increase this year. And but it's just the way you write something in the paper, where you put a large number with a lot of zeros at the end, you make it into a bigger story than it really is. And most of the people, I think, could afford the $20.
Not every community in the town can.
Yeah, actually, I could say, Felix, with all due respect, I mean, I grew up in Seaford. I was heavily involved with the Seaford situation. The Seaford Little League, at the 11th hour, was given a $16,000 bill that they weren't planning for. And I really give credit to County Legislator Steve Rhodes, who spearheaded this effort, and he stopped this from ever happening again, also at the county level. So it was real money. It wasn't just $20. Literally, the Seaford Little League received a bill for $16 grand.
No, I get that, but if you divide that by the number of children who are in that league, there were 60 teams in that league. So if you divide how many, let's say 10, 12, 15.
Where did you get that number, 60 teams?
It was in the paper. I looked online, I counted at least 40 on their website. So there was at least 40 teams I counted by looking. I did go to the website, I did my homework. So
right, but this was after the registration happened. And
I understand all that. It's just a matter of reporting it accurately, because when you put something with a big number, it just inflates.
Well, it was a big number, and I think as a matter of principle, we need to stand with Little League. With all that's going on in this country, if we can't stand with our local Little League, that's what this is all about. It's about America's pastime, and we're making a public statement about it.
I get that.
Bill, you're quibbling about what's going on in the county. This is the town of
No,
Hempstead.
I'm-
We haven't charged these fees,
I'm
we're just reflecting that we're not, we're
saying
just
that-
putting a resolution forward.
Yeah, the way it went through
Do you
was.
feel that we should charge them?
Well, you guys raised the fees on my kids. They don't play Little League, but they swim, and they lost one day of swim practice, and this board raised the fees.
Well, that was across the board for everybody.
Well, we lost 20% of our practice. We lost the bus on Saturday to the Needs, and the price went up. So when you look at it with the decrease in service and the increase might have been 5 or 10% increase. But when you say you lost 20% of your service, the real inflation is higher. I don't want to discuss it. I get it. Thank you. I got it. The next one is the item number 46, the apprentice training. I didn't get a chance to go through all this. I just feel that it does, the small business may not be able to have an apprentice training thing. There might be qualified companies that you're going to take bidders out of town contracts by doing this. And I just, as long as the people there are, like with the plumbing issue, as long as they're qualified to do the job that you're hiring for, whether they have an apprentice program or not, I don't think is irrelevant.
We have an apprenticeship program already. This just requires that you have to graduate your apprentices. So, because some companies were skirting the intention of that program and getting apprentices, but then not graduating them. So they were skirting the intent and purpose of the law, so this remedies that.
Well, I know that we had an issue here with, this guy actually won in court. He was a pump and tank contractor, and the town, he won the bid, and then they rescinded it based on the fact that his company didn't have an apprentice program, and he got an injunction, and I believe he won in court with that. So, but the thing is, like I said, I didn't go through this entirely, but no, I understand. It's a calling of the hearing. No, I understand that in the olden days, before I started talking on public hearings and administrative calendar, you were allowed to talk on calling. That was a rule Kate Murray made to just silence me. You're allowed. There's no state law that doesn't require, that prohibits you from speaking on the calling of a hearing. If that person only has this today to come in to speak on one issue, why not let them talk today instead of two? I'm just saying that as far as making the mention of whether it's just a calling of a hearing or not, if they just can make it that one day, why not?
We have another opportunity to discuss it as well.
I understand. I'm going to read it more thoroughly because I was looking at other stuff, but I just really think that requiring this, a mandatory apprentice program for a small business, takes competitors out of the... Anyway, thank you.
Nita Meriday?
Rita J. Meriday, Baldwin resident. Okay, go backwards, yes. 13. Just curious as to what this means. The IT, mechanical, does that mean that these screens will at some point actually work? My clock isn't ticking.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The town board members, senior councilman, good evening to you. This is for the air conditioning system for the information and technology department. The system is getting molds for a new chiller cooler unit outside and for the various electric and so forth that's needed also.
Is that actually the cooling for the air conditioning room itself, or where?
Outside, the chiller unit.
Yeah. So that has to be kept at a certain level, or else the system could go into failure, correct?
This is the most important air conditioning we have in the whole town, because obviously all of our information and technology is right here. It was an older system. We brought an engineering company in to make sure we had everything right and that we don't have any problems with any of our equipment. There's two bidders. We took the lowest bidder. We believe they're qualified. And we're moving forward.
An ounce of prevention.
So again, when can we expect this? residents and taxpayers to have this internal communication equipment kind of fixed. That's been the issue.
This is about HVAC. This resolution is about.
Okay, so you said they were, gotcha. You said they were two bidders. How extensive was the bidding process?
Well, the same as it always is. We bid through the newspaper and
You bid through which
it's
newspapers?
the same one that we always do, the bid, whatever, Business Week, whatever it's called.
So we have not changed that format at all to try to increase some opportunity. Are we using maybe Spanish language publications or radio? Are we using locally owned, minority owned publications, women owned publications? What are we doing different to make it more inclusive?
I think that's a good idea. I think we need to.
It's 2018, yeah.
I think we need to look at the way we're communicating, so that's something we've been discussing, that we're going to continue to discuss. We talked about it at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the supervisor and this board are in agreement that we have to look at our communications, and sometimes there are audiences that don't avail themselves of the
Well, they can't, general, they don't get access, and we're not, again, using, you know, maybe Spanish language, where, again, not even giving them the opportunity to even pursue it.
At the last town board meeting, I put forward a resolution to increase the number of publications in which we can put notices, publish notices. We're reaching out to some of those vendors to talk about what rates they're going to charge. I believe Noticias is on that, but at any rate, somebody from Noticias actually came in and met with my office this week. So that's a publication that we're looking at, a Spanish language publication.
Okay, but in the meantime, we're now in the middle of April of 2018, and we're still talking about using the same old, and we wonder why we do not have diversity and inclusion.
We're not talking about using the same old. We're talking about...
He just said we've been using the same publication. This is what the gentleman just said here on the record, that we've been using the same publications, and I asked that we're not doing anything different, and he said no.
Anita, I think basically this was in the works before the meeting last week when we approved the new list. So this had to go out before we approved the new list. We approved the new list at the last meeting. So going forward in the future, we're coming up, as the supervisor said, with a plan to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible. But obviously, it's rate sensitive also. It depends what the publications charge. So it's a negotiation process. This would not have made the deadline. The hearing for this was called before we had this new...
No, I understand, but there are other ways to recruit and generate opportunities for more inclusion outside of just publications that we consistently within this township fail to recognize or implement.
We agree.
I
appreciate that.
And just on that point, I think for the first time ever, we're going to be hosting a job fair this Saturday at the Pavilion to advertise summer employment opportunities. So anybody can apply for a job. A lot of times the summer employment jobs for children and older people is not well publicized. We put it out to every school. We put it in libraries so that people who may not have had the opportunity to apply for a job in the town of Hempstead now have an opportunity to come here to Town Hall on Saturday and apply for a job.
Okay, what about a contracts fair? We have businesses that can do work here, that pay taxes here, and can't seem to get any contracts here. So it's not just about providing summer employment, because some of their parents who are business owners can use that opportunity to kind of meet and find out about some of the services that they can provide. But just wanted to make that point. Well, if we don't know, Councilwoman Gooseby, then we wouldn't know.
We did have one last year. We'll have another one, and we're working on something more that really correct. Once we do that, you will hear about it. So you come.
Well, that would be nice if I hear about it, because we haven't been hearing much, you know, at least
But it's not ready.
in your office. Okay. Number 23, I just thought that was, thank you so much. Number 23, I just thought that was interesting that, you know, I get it, we need to be a part of the Office of Tourism, but I think we need to do a lot more to kind of help support the residents that are already struggling to stay here. And I don't know how many tourists can really brave our roads and other structures in this community. I don't know how many ways I can talk about the problems with our roads in this town. I see number 24 was X'd out because I did have some extensive questions about that one. 27 and 35, 36, again, my issue is with outreach, or I should say lack of same. I'm glad to hear that we're now going to increase our publications, but I still have concerns about the lack of outreach and the lack of inclusion, that we do not have proactive programs and services that can be inclusive of veterans or disabled veteran, minority, women, LGBT, etc., those types of businesses that are also tax-paying residents of this township. But if there are, behind-the-scenes activities that are taking place, let us know. We should have a right to know. Item 31 and 33, for me, I'm always appreciative of accepting sponsorships, and I think our senior citizens program is exceptional. It would be nice if we had this similar type of model for our veteran services. Again, this is not to take anything away from what our one veteran counselor is doing, but we have over 40,000 veterans in the township. We need to do something a little bit more progressive and expansive if we can. I'm tired of being a broken record on that. And as I said, in 35 and 36, again, my issue is with the outreach. I'm seeing these names quite often, Nelson and Poe, D&D engineers, and the other one is H2M. Again, we need to kind of focus on broadening the scope. And I would like to mention that I am so happy that, and I have a few more seconds because I was taking note of that. We're noticing that on Grand Avenue that they have finally started the demolition on the Sorrento Pizzeria, which from our understanding that means that that former Pathmark project will be moving forward. So I do want to commend, and again, I don't want to name any names because I don't want people who don't think that they deserve the credit to say that they don't deserve it. So whoever deserves the credit, I'd like to give credit where it is due, and also the buildings department and code enforcement for some of the damaged trees that have been removed. We still have one more on our street, but my neighbor, who probably did notice that the tree was cut down in front of her house anyway, I'm sure she appreciates it not being blown down during another nor'easter. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Craig?
Mary Ellen Craig, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. On item 25 and 26, remove parcel benefited by construction or reconstruction of sidewalks along a certain street in the town of Hempstead from being assessed on their 2018 taxes. Do we know what area this is in, and why is this being done?
Mr. Rock?
Can anybody get it?
I believe that they were incorrectly assessed, and we're correcting that. Is that right? Commissioner?
Supervisor, members of the town board, good evening. How you doing? Friends go home one time. It's exactly what you said. It was a incorrect number put on the assessment, and this is taking that off. It's just correcting it.
And on 26, about agricultural waste transport and/or delivery purchase contract. Are we buying agricultural waste or are we selling it?
Commissioner?
Hi, good evening, Supervisor, members of the board, Ken Pritchard, Commissioner of Sanitation. It's for the disposal of yard waste and compost sometimes. So agricultural waste, bit of a misnomer, but it's the yard waste. It's the leaves and the grass.
The things which you pick up once a week.
Correct.
And so you do not compost it, you send it out of town, somebody else composts it.
Correct. It goes out.
So we pay to have that done.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. On 27, Is this the project that has the solar components? The marine nature study? If so, I could...
Commissioner DeLuca,
This is...
I could be wrong, but I think that this has to do with the, no questions here.
This has to do with the rebuilding of the nature study area building.
Can't hear you, sir.
This has to do with the building, rebuilding of the existing nature study area building after the damage done by Sandy.
And are there going to be any solar components in that?
It's going to be completely powered by solar. We might even have another wind machine going, but not very big.
Well, I commend the town on forward-thinking, forward production of energy, because that's so important for the future, and it gives a good role model. Thank you.
And Commissioner, just to follow up, the work is being done on the classroom or the offices or both?
No, the classroom is completed, we're using it temporarily now.
Right.
But the offices are completely destroyed, and that building will be demolition.
Right.
Replaced.
Thank you very much. On items 37 and 30, 37 and 39, 37 and 38. These are unpaid positions to the labor board, and what type of...
Yes, they're unpaid positions, and they're replacing, the individuals who are named are replacing people who held the position before them, so they're just switching out people who are now in charge. Excuse me, I misspoke. We think they get compensated $116 per month.
They have monthly meetings, is that?
Yes.
And what kind of requirements for their positions?
Well, generally, they're people, it's a labor advisory board, so that union people and people who are active in the building trades.
Thank you. I assumed that they were union people, but it's good to know that that's correct. On item 35 and 39, consulting services, this installation of roadway, conduit, street lighting, and so on. I don't know, this is in a different area, but my question relates to conduit, or whatever the heck is happening on Jerusalem Avenue and Front Street. Is this a sewer project, or is it a utility project? What was the item again? I'm sorry? What was the item again? Oh, I'm relating 35 and 39.
It's for street lighting.
Those are for street lighting. But I'm relating it to the project that's going on in Uniondale right now, so that, and Hempstead, Front Street and Jerusalem Avenue torn up, tubes being put in. Is this for sewage or is it for utilities?
39 is street lighting. Resolution 39 is street lighting.
I think you're speaking about something entirely different, right? They have
No. So this is not in Uniondale or Hempstead. This is because there's no area indicated here. Where
35 is Belmore, Merrick, Seaford, Wanton, Oceanside, drainage improvements.
Well, it would be helpful for me and other people in Uniondale if somebody could let me know what the that's taking place in Uniondale and Hempstead relates to, whether it's utility or sewage.
I'm sure the council would be happy to follow up with you.
Yeah, but you know what that is? That is a county project. They're doing it, you know, this thing, you know,
It's a county project.
Yeah, Jerusalem is a sewer project.
Jerusalem is a sewer project, and Front Street also.
I believe it's one and the same.
That was our interpretation, but those pipes are not very big.
I don't know, I'm not a sewage engineer.
Well, neither am I, but you know, when you figure it looks like it's maybe, what's that, about a foot? Not a heck of a lot for...
I guess it gets the job done.
I hope so, because
We all do.
we had a family home in Hempstead, and regularly the sewage would back up into the basement, plumbing. So it is a problem. I think that might be, and about the apprenticeships. I think that's a very important thing.
Thank you. Natalie Gary?
Hello, Natalie Gary, 63 Formley Avenue, Roseville, in Castle. I just had a question on number 10. Just wanted to understand what exactly is going on in the area of Roosevelt. I see it's going on in other areas as well. I just didn't understand what it is.
Commissioner?
Good evening, Supervisor, members of the town board. What that is specific properties that were open and abandoned that the town boarded up.
Did the town board it up? Was that the one with the red stickers on them, or?
We're the ones that put those stickers on, yes. That is to notify the local fire departments of the structure inside, if it's okay for them to go inside, if it's dangerous or there's dangers for them that they should stay outside.
Okay, so that's going to be only done on 2 properties?
On this town board resolution, correct, it's on the 2 town board, 2 issues in Roosevelt.
Because there's a lot of abandoned boarded homes, so basically they are going to take it as one home at a time, or they're going to just look at it differently?
No, what happened, are you talking about the X's on the front of the house?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are specific to that house. So as the fire department pulls up in the middle of the night, they'll see either a red box, which means it's safe to go in, that we were there. If there's one slash, it means use caution, and if there's a white X across it, that means do not go in unless life hazards inside.
Okay, so that's is that on all of them?
No, because it depends on the status. There'll be one of the boxes, but these specific resolutions tonight is for 22 Valentine Street and 79 White House.
Thank you. The other question I wanted to know, what exactly is the sponsorship for, item number 31, what is the sponsorship for the senior citizen program? What is that program? I just didn't understand it, so I just wanted to know what it was.
Hi, I'm the Commissioner of Senior Enrichment. So what we do is we have sponsors. Generally, they come from the insurance companies. So we have things like AgeWell that comes in, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they come into the various centers to talk to the seniors, to let them know about the services that they can provide, and in exchange for giving them a little presentation, they give us, the department, some revenue which goes into the general fund to offset their visits. And then we also have sponsors for our health and wellness fair, and they come down and they talk to the seniors, and they provide them again with other types of knowledge, and that goes a long way to supporting all the programs we give throughout the year. Okay? Thank you.
I'd also like to say thank you for looking out for the youth baseball, all of the ones that use the soccer teams and things like that. I appreciate you guys following the steps of not charging them, and also keeping up, because it means a lot for kids to be able to do something after school and with these little league baseballs, and I really appreciate what you guys have done tonight in terms of securing that for the future of the youth. The youth is our future. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any other slips on the administrative calendar. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for a vote on items 8 through 50, excluding items 17, 18, 24, 30, and 36.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye. Sorry, let me just make a statement. In regards to item number 28, which is the park fees with regards to nonprofits and Little Leagues, I just want to point out that despite the opinion of Mike Fricchione, this legislation clearly and specifically mentions Little Leagues, youth soccer, football, nonprofits, leaving zero discretion, therefore making certain that youth senior leagues won't be surprised if this discretion changes. That's the point of the legislation. And furthermore, I just want to mention that I find it completely appalling that a member of the town staff uses legislation in favor of Little Leagues and sports and our seniors and youth to make personal attacks on the members of this board. I would never allow it for my staff, and I don't think that members of this town board would allow it either, and I find it appalling. And I think that he needs to be reminded that although he was brought here and recommended by our supervisor, the town board voted to hire him, and they could do the same by terminating him. I vote aye.
Councilman Ambrosino? Aye. Councilman Dunn?
I support everything that my colleague just said, and I back up 100%, Anthony, and I vote aye also.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
I vote aye, and I support you as well.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
I'm aye, and I'm delighted we're playing baseball in town of Hempstead.
Supervisor Gillum?
Aye, and I'm glad to say that I've always been a proud supporter of Little League, both as a participant and as a parent of 4 children who participated in Little League, supporting the league by marching in parades, attending parades, going to their fundraisers. I privately always supported Little League. As soon as I heard about the fees on Little League, I immediately had my staff reach out to the commissioner to make sure that we were not charging fees to Little Leagues, and I was assured that we were not charging fees to Little Leagues. So I was relieved to hear that. I did not choose to use this as to take a political swing at the county executive, who was using her discretion to do what she thinks is best for the county, since it did not impact town parks. So as a proud supporter of Little League, I vote aye.
Well, that was fun.
May we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino? Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rock, is the hand-ups included in the vote?
Yes, they were on the administrative calendar.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gillum?
Aye. Okay, that concludes the formal portion of our town board meeting. We will now move on to public comment. First, I have Felix Prachi.
Felix Prachi, 1165 Bond Street, Franklin Square. First, I notified Supervisor Gillen of this. Just want to bring it to the board's attention. Brookhaven Town Code allows for special elections. I'm not sure what the conditions are, whether you have to get state approval before you could pass that law, but it does exist, so I think we should do that.
I thank you for sharing that with me, Mr. Prachi, and we are looking into doing a similar provision here, because I agree with you. I think it would be very good legislation.
Okay, Town Ethics Code requires financial disclosures of town officials. We posted online. Currently, the town is in violation of its own law. What will the town board do to comply with its own ethics law?
It applies to the 2018 filings, which covers the year of 2017. So when people file this May, that will be the calendar year 2017, and those will be posted.
the law does not state anything like that. Mr. Amarini did give me your interpretation of it, but that's not what the law says. And also I foiled financial disclosures and they're way past due. Okay, also I followed up with Councilwoman Sweeney's the debate, or whatever you want to call it, about building commissioner requirements. I foiled the requirements. I sent it to the councilwoman. I believe I sent it to the supervisor too. It essentially references town code, and per the law, no personal animus or anything like that, per the law, the current building commissioner does not have the requirements per the town code. That's just what way it is. Okay? That's just the way it is. I was asked, what action will the town board take to ensure it's in compliance with its own building code? Stop the clock, please.
We disagree. We disagree with your interpretation.
Well, it says it right on the law, but that's fine. You could disagree. Also, the Civil Service Commission, they kind of post their agenda in a weird way in the events section, but once again, they're not in compliance with the law. I'm sure you disagree with me on that too, but they don't put the details. You read their agenda, you can't understand anything of what they're going to be discussing at the April 18th meeting. I hope the town board will take the appropriate action so the Civil Service Commission abides by New York State law, which you disagreed with me for like 2 months before you finally applied it to the town of Hempstead. And that's why the residents now can go to the website and see all the details of the resolutions, not just the summaries. Also, on the investigation company that we hired, I didn't catch this last time, but there's a letter to Joe Rod indicating that the investigation company is going to report directly to the town attorney, and that company is investigating the town attorney's office. So I find that a conflict of interest, and I would ask that they change that contract. So the town board, or somebody on the town board, or some committee, someone independent of the town attorney's office, gets interfaces with LMGI. The free air laws. Why hasn't the town board rescinded those laws? And why are we spending tens of thousands of dollars additionally since the court indicated their opinion was it's in...
We are getting very close to a settlement of that litigation.
Because with Mr. Macy, I saw the letter on where he wants to depose everybody, and that letter probably cost us $300-400 for him to write that. I'm not sure why we're spending money on that.
What letter are you referring to? Because I haven't seen that letter.
Joe Macy.
What is the date of that letter?
I don't remember. But he sent it to I assume that you got it. I'm sure Joe Ryan knows about it.
Do you know what the date of that letter is, Mr. Roth? Will you find out? Because we're supposed to be settling this case, not spending money on litigation for a case that we're about to settle, which was a clear directive that I ordered to be given to our outside counsel. We shouldn't be spending money if we're going to settle a case. It's frivolous.
I will send that letter.
Free air case.
I will send that letter to you. I have a lot of stuff with you. Has the town enacted any regulations relating to the windows and restaurant law?
I think the law speaks for itself.
Stop the clock, please.
I think the law speaks for itself.
You indicated to me on May 9th, the 10th, whatever it was, when we revised the law, I asked questions about whether the windows were in certain positions, and you indicated that there would be regulations promulgated to give guidance to the BZA or to a court to determine whether a company is entitled to a variance on it. Right now, it doesn't speak for itself. Also, is Rebecca Sinclair still the supervisor's liaison to the animal shelter?
Yes, she is.
You heard about what happened last week. I was very upset. I was standing right there. I don't think she has the appropriate temperament for that position, and I did indicate that to you already. I just wanted to say it publicly. And one more thing, two more things. Can residents prepare presentations to be used on the big screens? We'll pre-screen them to make sure we have appropriate material. And And can we use those, like if I wanted to make a presentation, can we now use those big screens to make a presentation? And we'll let you know in advance with the technicians, so.
I don't believe that's ever been the practice at town board meetings.
Yeah, but Nassau County does allow residents to do that, but of course you have to give advance notice, because you have to have they barred us from doing it, Supervisor Santino, Kate Murray, but Nassau County, for example, a group came in to make a presentation, they got permission, and they did the presentation on big screens. It's just a matter of whether this board will allow it, but there's no rules that say that you can't do that. I think it would be useful, because a lot of the stuff I have would be better to show a picture that everyone could see, a document, and of course it would be appropriate material to what I'm talking about. It can't be off the wall, and it would be pre-screened prior to the meeting, so you have an opportunity to review it and say, okay, this is not right, that's okay. But I think it's a good idea, because it might even make statements shorter. Real quick, you heard Jack Schneerman is doing an audit to examine nepotism in Nassau government. I'll leave you with a question. When will Nassau begin its audit into nepotism in the town of Hempstead? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prachi, you said the FOIL that was outstanding was related to financial disclosures?
That's right.
I'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
Terry Winston?
Good evening. My name is Terry Winston. I live in the Incorporated Village of Hempstead. I was at a public hearing hosted by the Town of Hempstead IDA last month and would like to address my concerns regarding the transparency and unprofessional behavior of the Town of Hempstead IDA members. The Town of Hempstead IDA public hearing exists only in name to appease the public and gives the Town of Hempstead IDA and the pilot recipient the opportunity to defend the giveaway of taxpayer money. The inducement resolution is a meeting where public input is optional, and the applicant and his high-powered attorney are afforded every opportunity to present at length to all in attendance what the project will entail and the benefits. I have the minutes from a public hearing dated August 11, 2011. The minutes I am referring to pertain to the application presented by Mercedes-Benz. In those minutes, page 26, line 6, Fred Parola admits that the decision has already been made. It is also interesting to note that Reginald Lucas, who is a current member on the IDA board, objected to this car dealership and recently favored Mazda. The current mayor of the village opposed the Mercedes-Benz pilot application and recently endorsed Mazda. The mayor's testimony can be found on page 8, line 21, through page 12, line 11. My just opposition regarding pilots has not changed, and yet the Town of Hempstead IDA would rather honor or take into account individuals who change their position like the weather. The Town of Hempstead IDA is an extension of a power structure whose sole purpose is to give away hard-earned taxpayer money to rich developers and corporations. A reversed Robin Hood, so to speak. The Town of Hempstead is protected by open-end legislation engulfed in flexible interpretation contingent upon whatever the favored agenda is. In addition, the Town of Hempstead IDA continues to deny me my right to public information that is essential to my input at these hearings. For instance, I am constantly directed by the Town of Hempstead IDA to put in a FOIL request for documents required before the public hearing, the day of the public hearing. This agency is misusing the true intention of FOIL. The public gets notified of the public hearing usually 2 weeks in advance, which doesn't allow ample enough time to put in the request in time for the hearing. I would like to request that you examine the minutes of all the public hearing pilots located in the village of Hempstead. The minutes are full of contradictions and blatant lies. This agency continues to be a thorn in the side of the residents in the village of Hempstead, and as long as the village, the town, and Nassau County turn a blind eye and are complicit, Hempstead is experiencing a downward spiral, but the rest of Nassau County will eventually suffer the same fate. That agency has to go. They've lost their usefulness, and that's all I have to say.
The IDA is independent of the town board. They are an independent agency. I agree with some of the statements that you made. I sent in a letter in opposition to the granting of a pilot to the car dealership. I didn't think it was appropriate, but they chose to pass it anyway.
Well, as long as they have the town of Hempstead attached to the front of the IDA, there has to be some input from the town of Hempstead. That's not acceptable to me. That agency is a secret society. Someone has to be behind that agency.
The members of the agency are behind the agency.
You know what? That doesn't even sound right. If that's not corruption, and talking about draining the swamp.
The IDA is appointed by the town board and then acts as an independent agency. There is one vacancy on the IDA board, and we have a resolution that's pending. It's been tabled to appoint someone new, someone from labor, to the IDA board. I don't believe anybody from labor has ever sat on the IDA board before. So we're waiting. I'm hoping that that resolution will be on the next administrative calendar.
Fred Kohler needs to go.
Winters and Bob Biller. Simon together. Hillary. Bob. Bonnie Radfishar.
Good evening. I have some notes here that I'd like to read, and I did that so I wouldn't forget anything, but it pertains to the RFPs for the Hempstead Animal Shelter. Privatizing the shelter is not the solution to problems that are simple to correct. The problem is the lack of desire for change. Privatizing the shelter would probably force many good people to lose their job because most companies would bring in staff of their own. The roadblocks to change come from lack of education in what the current standards of animal welfare should be in 2018. Appointing a liaison to the animal shelter who knows nothing about animal welfare beyond providing food, water, and shelter, and is unable to remain unbiased when dealing with both shelter staff and the public is not helpful in bridging the gap in communication and fostering the ability to work together. Implementing the necessary programs that have been recommended by the community could turn the Hempstead Animal Shelter into the leader of animal welfare throughout the United States. We have the resources and we have the money, just not the desire or the commitment. The RFP for a sanctuary is alarming because no such place exists. Many classify themselves as a sanctuary, but I can tell you from personal experience, most are frauds. Through the recommendation of Oprah Winfrey and Jill Rappaport, a journalist, I had sent a rescued cat to Angel's Gate, which was located in upstate New York. 2 years later, that same wonderful place was closed down, charged with criminal negligence and animal abuse through an undercover investigation. It was not long ago Hempstead sent dogs to a rehab facility in Virginia Beach. This place was also closed due to a criminal investigation for animal abuse and fraud. Many of our dogs came back, but still some are missing, and we have no idea what happened to them. We did learn that some are advertised on Craigslist for $20, which is perfect bait material for dog fighting rings. That is the legacy that Hempstead still has. Melissa Fogarty, who works at the shelter, was in contact with the authorities in Virginia Beach, but no information is shared with the public, and there is no transparency. I know that many of you are parents and grandparents, aunts or uncles, and many of us in this room can agree that when kids get bored, they start acting out. Animals are no different. Being kept in a small enclosure with no stimulation or exercise, plus noise that's 24/7, would make anyone anxious and irritable. Imagine trying to go to sleep in the Midtown Tunnel during rush hour. How about we start on a simple scale, like setting a goal that every dog gets the opportunity each day to be walked, or at the very least outside in the pens, running around and playing. Put out a plea to the community for dog walkers. 2 simple things are what cause behavioral problems: no exercise and no stimulation or playtime. The solutions are easy and not difficult to achieve. The resistance to change is impossible. Thank you.
If I may, I just want to point out that I'm not speaking for the majority caucus, but I know that we've discussed this, in meetings, and the effect that it would have on the CSEA has been an issue that concerns us. So, not saying that we're against it, but we have raised that issue, and it's something that we've discussed.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that I know from experience dealing with this in New York City that 9 times out of 10, when you bring in an outside organization to run a municipal shelter, they do bring in their own staff.
We agree, and we're concerned about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure any good people at the shelter don't want a job working, no offense, but in the sanitation department if they like dogs. So, thank you.
I just have to take issue with the fact that the roadblock is the lack of will to improve the animal shelter. Since I got elected day one, my concern is about making sure that the animal shelter is functioning correctly. We've made a number of improvements already at the animal shelter. It's been painted. We have installed extra cameras. We are implementing new changes in terms of how we operate our volunteer protocols. The shelter has been, we're having an operational overhaul of the shelter. When we got a complaint from someone in the audience about a dog being mishandled, we investigated it. As soon as we found out that there was an issue, we responded to it immediately. There is a will. Everybody on this town board cares about the animals, and we are working together to make sure that the animal shelter becomes a first-class shelter.
Well, I find that interesting that you say that, because you never share exactly what the shelter is working on. Plenty of people go past the shelter and it's a beautiful sunny day and there are no dogs outside. I mean, volunteers go there.
I didn't hear it say that, but I can give you lists of volunteers who have come in and work and walk the dogs. And pretty soon, every volunteer will be logging what they do. Every volunteer will be logging what they do, so I'll be able to give you a computer printout of when the dogs are walked very soon.
Is that for every single dog in the shelter or just a few?
The dogs in the shelter get walked.
Not every one of them?
Yes, they do.
They get walked all the time?
They get walked on a regular basis.
What's a regular basis? What's your definition of a regular basis?
I'm not going to define that for you right now. I have to get the stats from the right shelter.
So much for transparency.
So much for transparency. I'm answering your questions, Ms. Radford.
You're the town supervisor who your whole campaign was based on transparency and reform at the animal shelter.
And I'm doing both of those things. I said I'm implementing a system where we're going to start logging what the volunteers do. So in a short amount of time, I'll be able to give you the data on what dogs were walked and when they were walked.
Okay, well, I hope that all the dogs get walked. Thank you.
Next, Nita Meredith.
Okay, I'm glad it was brought up about the nepotism audit, because I would second the recommendation that we really need to scrutinize a little better in terms of some of the hiring practices and things like that down the road. I noticed that when we were hearing about the information for the calling of the hearing, there was a reference to a pilot and Baldwin, and I really think in light of the situation with Valley Stream that the taxpayers are still addressing that issue, and we still do not have any clearly defined regulations or recourses when the actual payments don't meet up with the quote-unquote tax savings. We should look into a moratorium on these pilots, when we talk about payments in lieu of taxes, because after a while, the taxpayers themselves, the ones that are still remaining, that are trying to protect their own property as the increasing number of zombie houses are occurring, the new definition for pilot is going to be protest in lieu of taxes. So it's something that we need to think about. I asked before with regard to the situation with the Stop and Shop in Hempstead, and I'm still curious as to what is going on with that. One, why is it closing? Two, is it just going to be another gated-in facility like the former Wall Bounds in East Meadow, which can be rampant for all various and sundry activities that are costly to the resident. So I just want to put that out there. And I was glad that someone asked a question about what was some of the programs relating to the sponsorships for seniors, because I don't see why we cannot have a similar health and wellness fair for our veteran community. I mean, again, even with my increasing 9/11 conditions, even if I have to come in here in a hover-around scooter and mouth the words, I am going to continue to speak out with regard to the lack of the integrity of the programming and the rationale behind some of the conditions that our veterans are living under, and that we keep boasting about being the largest township and that we are America's first suburb, and the way that we treat our veterans are archaic. To have a singular process for our veterans, it's disrespectful to them in terms of the fact that they're losing their homes, they cannot find work, they cannot maintain their families here, and all I hear about is, well, we're a township and we have one counselor and he does a great job. I'm not taking that away from him, but there's more to it than that, and we need to step up. I commend those who come here on a regular basis who are fighting for our animals, and I also fight for the rights of our animals and all who are underprivileged and don't have a voice, but they still have to pay the taxes to be here, and we really need to address those issues. And lastly, we need to have training within the township, because again, too many instances where residents come to this table and they talk specifically about things that have happened to them by people whose salaries that we pay. And we do not even get the courtesy of having someone that really can feel what that individual is going through. We have residents that have some issues and they come to the township. I'm not saying everybody presents themselves in a certain way, but when you are frustrated and you're constantly reading about friends and relatives who are not qualified, who are getting jobs or coming from out of the area, and it takes them 6 to 7 months just to get up to speed, and we're sitting here spinning our wheels trying to pay these taxes in this township, and we cannot get anyone who is either knowledgeable or respectable in these town departments, that is a problem. So if we have an office of training, we need to do some real sensitivity training, some cultural training, and let's get some folks in here with some professional development, some integrity, and get some institutional knowledge in this township. Thank you.
Diane Madden.
Diane Madden, East Meadow. I find it interesting that you talk about prioritizing the animal shelter when the first thing you did was put in a liaison with zero experience, no background in animal sheltering operations, policies, procedures, zero. Everything you criticize Santino for, you imitated precisely. I'd like to know the RFPs, if there was any responses to them, for privatization, for the behaviorist, extreme behavior, all of the categories that were posted. Does anyone have an answer?
This is your time to talk.
It's interesting how you cut off communication. You had no problem communicating not only with myself, but many people daily, when you could hardly make a decision on your own. Who's monitoring the cameras? Did someone tell me? This is your transparency? I do want to thank you, Councilman D'Esposito, for reaching out to certain advocates to try to fix some things in spite of this. Thank you. Have you found any mismanagement yet at the animal shelter? You're in your 5th month. Anything come up? Because you're doing everything except what you promised to do, what you acknowledged a year ago out front of the animal shelter. The mismanagement, the cruelty, nothing. You're having a job fair. What's the point? You have everyone, the same people in place that are going to review applications. Doesn't matter where you do your advertising. You talked about monitoring the volunteers for dog walking. This is your 5th month. You put in a computer to monitor the volunteers. There were $3 million in salaries at the animal shelter, but you are monitoring the volunteers to make sure they're walking all of the dogs. Does that make sense to anyone? Who is monitoring the staff to make sure they're doing their jobs? As far as the RFPs, does anyone know who will be on an interview committee, interviewing, reviewing these? Will the town board be seeing these applications? Is there an interview committee?
This is your time to talk. You can follow up with your questions afterwards.
Excuse me?
I'll follow up on your questions afterwards. This is your time to talk.
I have no problem with you answering my questions publicly. We don't have a friendship, we have a business relationship now. Are there cameras in the vet room, in the medical room? You mentioned that there would be.
Yes. No, in the bedroom, in the surgery room, there aren't cameras. There are cameras in the days.
So you had mentioned that they would be in the medical and vet room. I think those cameras are very important. Do you have any idea if those have been installed?
Stop the clock.
I think there was an issue with putting them in the surgery room. So they're in the other places that I described.
Talking to the mic.
So, okay, there was an issue?
Yes.
But do you have the power to put those cameras in?
I put the cameras in.
Except for those rooms?
Just in the surgery room.
Because many problems and allegations of cruelty happened in those rooms.
There are many allegations, but I don't think there are many problems.
Oh, is that true? There are not many problems?
Not
so all of these meetings that the public and volunteers and everyone is having with your staff, you haven't found any problems?
Well, I know that there's a lot of misinformation spread on social media that turns out to not be true.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Be specific.
Toy poodle that was allegedly butchered by Dr. Siegel during her stay. The dog was not spayed at the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter.
That was a gentleman, I believe, that tried to come here to speak tonight. That wasn't my post. That was his claim. So who's telling
an
you?
example, and that's an example.
That's an example, but who's telling you that? Your expert liaison? Who?
No, people at the staff at the animal shelter are telling me that.
The staff at the animal shelter are telling you that. Like Michael Pastori? Maybe you should find out the person that posted that to find out if what the real truth
You asked
is.
for an example, I gave you an example. Thank you.
That's a very poor example, Laura.
It's an example of a post on social media about a fact that's not true.
Okay, but you got your information from someone at the animal shelter. Did you get in touch with the person that posted it to find out if in fact it was their dog that was spayed? Because I highly doubt, if it's the same case that I also read somewhere on social media, I highly doubt somebody would falsify veterinary paperwork for a dog and make that kind of accusation. So I'm wondering if you checked with that person, or you just went to the animal shelter where you acknowledged the mismanagement and asked them.
The dog was not spayed at the Hempstead Animal Shelter.
Okay, well, again, it wasn't my dog, it wasn't my claim, but...
So now.
Excuse me?
Your time is up. We have to move on to the next person.
Okay, I certainly will. I'll look forward to those answers.
Rich Shuren.
Good evening, Richard Sherman, 167 Jefferson Avenue, Harbor Island, New York. I just have a general comment. I think the town of Hempstead board government is dysfunctional and it's a product of the fact, primarily I believe, of the fact that the town of Hempstead is too large to govern as a town. Local government is important to me, and to providing services, local services to people are important. And the town of Hempstead, as you know, is larger than many states, larger than it's the largest town in the country. It clearly doesn't function properly. It doesn't provide local services in an efficient manner. We saw it in Sandy. We were all, in my community, we were all stranded. We had no representation whatsoever. We see it in the dysfunction of this town board. It had as long as one party was in complete control of the town, it had the appearance of functioning efficiently because a show was put on and everyone was on the same page. But in truth, it's really just a patronage mill. It's always been that way. It serves the party in control historically and providing jobs to the connected and the family members, but it doesn't provide its basic function of providing services on a local basis to residents. And now that we have the other party playing a role, it's coming to the forefront. We're seeing it. We're seeing the dysfunction, it's disappointing. And it's sad that I live in a community where I don't have a local government that is responsive to me. I can't go to a local community meeting and know the people. I don't know the staff. The town of Hempstead is too large, and it doesn't serve its residents. I fear that I salute you, Ms. Gillen. I think you have an impossible task. You're dealing with a hostile board who is put there and supported by a very strong political machine, very coordinated. You're out there by yourself, and people are going to criticize you, and adversaries on the board are going to take pot shots at you continually. In my opinion, unfairly. It's just, I don't know what the solution is, except to, everyone here to, realize that, you're here in service of the community, not your party, and to think about that and try to act that way, and don't view the town of Hempstead as a means to, hire friends and family and provide jobs and patronage and et cetera. That's just my general comment, and that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor, if I could comment on that. Of everything that you said, I think the one thing that should really strike with everyone on this board is the fact that you're claiming that the town of Hempstead does not provide sufficient services. And that is a direct reflection of our CSEA workforce. And I will tell you right now, they work hard, they do the job that they have to do, your garbage is picked up, your streets are plowed. It may not be done as quick as you want it to, but they do it and they work hard.
Every opportunity you take to try to make a political point, and it's so transparent, Anthony, it's ridiculous. My comment...
I feel the same about your comments.
My comment is that this board does not serve its constituents.
Okay, and I disagree with you. Okay. Because I think everyone on this board, regardless of their political affiliation, works as hard as they can. I don't think that anyone on... I can finish, right? You did your time.
No, you can stop the
okay.
and I'll finish it now.
Okay, so everyone on this board works very hard in serving their constituents. It may not be how you like it, and I think that regardless, and I've said this before, I could do many different things, and you still wouldn't be satisfied with the services that are provided by the town of Hempstead. That's clear.
I don't have a representative representing my community.
I don't represent Idle Park.
No, you don't effectively represent me.
Okay, that is completely ridiculous.
Listen, I want to say, Anthony, the fact that you've accepted.
So this is personal.
No, it's not personal.
Sounds like it.
It's not.
Okay, listen. No, I'm going to finish. I completely disagree with you. I work very hard representing the 4th Councilmanic District, and I definitely work very hard representing Island Park. I was born and raised there. I work very hard making sure that our services are provided to the top notch. And I will say it again, it's not anything political. The workforce in the town of Hempstead does a tremendous job day in and day out providing the services, whether it's our parks, our beaches, our roads, our buildings, town hall, wherever it is, they work hard providing the services. And I think that the 2,000 plus of them would heavily disagree that they're not providing the services that you want.
Once again, you don't understand the point that I'm making.
No, you don't understand my point.
And once again, Anthony, I don't mean, it's a fact. It's a fact that you accepted a position at the Board of Elections. How often do you work at the Board of Elections, Mr. D'Esposito?
So that's where we're going. Okay.
No, it's just a symptom of the problem. I spoke before and I said I don't blame you because I don't think the position pays enough.
Okay.
I believe you deserve to make more money, but the fact of the matter is you don't. And it's not right to just accept $100,000 for nothing.
So is it about services from the town of Hempstead, or is it about another job?
It's the whole process.
Or is it about me?
It's the way the town of Hempstead operates, Anthony. You don't understand it.
Thank you.
And if you thought about it, you wouldn't accept that $100,000, and you shouldn't. And other people here, you shouldn't just stand for this, because local government is important.
I agree.
Stacy Rose.
Hello, my name is Stacy Rose. I'm a resident of Freeport. Quick question, I'd just like to know how many summer jobs will be offered at the summer job fair?
Jim, do you have those numbers? I don't have them in front of me. The number of jobs at the summer job fair? They're seasonal jobs.
We'll see that varies. It depends on the availability of the park.
I can get you the numbers. I do have them, but I just don't have them with me today.
Terrific. Also, I'm an outdoor.
If you see this lady right there, Adina, she can follow up with you and get you the number.
Okay, terrific. I'm an outdoors person, and I really love our parks, and I'm very happy with Merritt Golf Course and our Merritt Park, and also the modifications made at Lido, and I think that it's important to grow these sports for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis McInerney?
Good evening, Dennis McInerney, Village of Floral Park, long-time listener, first-time speaker. First of all, I just want to bring to the board's attention that on Friday there is a deadline that the New York State Economic Development Corp has for submitting comments regarding the scoping document relating to Belmont Park. And I urge each and every member, as well as each and every member of the public, to submit their comments before Friday, because it is too important an issue in the town of Hempstead to leave it to just the state of New York. The second question, and I don't know who I should direct this to, is a correction of the transcript. If on the December 12th of 2017, there were some comments made by my representative, Mr. Andresino, which I do not think were correctly transcribed, and I think I brought them to his attention as well as your attention. And does the minutes of the meeting ever get corrected if, in fact, there's an egregious or even a significant difference between the transcript and the meeting?
I didn't see it, and I didn't see the comments that you're talking about. I did look, I saw that you flagged that, and I did look for the general topic of what you were talking about. I think you were talking about when Mr. Ambrosino voted on the MOU. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I did look, and there is some reflection there, but I didn't compare it to the video. You're saying there's a difference between the video and what's reflected in the written minutes of the meeting?
Yes, Supervisor. There were some misstatements on the transcript as compared to the video itself, in particular relating to a case known as Johnson City, and which I think is an important issue. Now, also, Councilwoman King Sweeney, in September, you prepared and submitted a Freedom of Information Act to a board related to a resolution related to ethics. Do you remember that FOIL request?
That one specifically off the top of my head, no, but I don't doubt that I submitted requests, and I'd be happy to go through what I submitted to refresh my memory exactly what I submitted.
Sure. To refresh your recollection, it's related to the fact you were trying to identify on the ethics resolution who drafted it, when was it drafted, and when it was sent to department heads. Do you recall that FOIL?
I do.
Okay.
In broad terms, I do.
Okay. Can you explain to me as a member of the public what documents are generated in anticipation of a resolution? And please stop the clock.
So in preparation for a resolution, I guess it depends what it is. I mean, sometimes I'll send an email to fellow council members, to a supervisor, to the town attorney. I mean, and it generates a conversation. I mean, take the plumbers legislation. I met some plumbers. They seem to have a good idea. I think I sent an email to the building commissioner. Hey, what's the story? Got some feedback. You know, those, I don't know if you would refer to those as official documents. But,
and the reason I asked that,
and then there'd be like a draft legislation you look at and circulate it, whatever.
the reason I asked that is because I followed almost as a template your FOIL request related to item number 17 on the December 12th meeting. And Mr. Ambasino, I've been trying for 4 months to find out what you relied upon related to your vote in favor, 4-3, related to item number 17, December 12th. First of all, have you received my messages for 4 months? Please stop the clock.
Mr. McInerney, here's the issue. The issue is very, very clear. You requested by FOIL request what documents I relied upon. I sent it to our FOIL officer. Truth is, I didn't rely on any documents, but I'm going to give you the source right now. Why don't you write this down? You have a pen and paper? It's called www.harrisbeach.com. And I reviewed the video transcript, and I said very clearly, very, very clearly, that I relied upon an opinion of a law firm. It's an excellent law firm, Harris Beach. And in that opinion, I'm going to cite the article. Municipalities may be able to lay off despite contractual no layoff clauses. I never said it was an opinion rendered for me. I never requested an opinion. And if the minutes reflected otherwise, the video transcript was I relied upon an opinion of Harris Beach. And unless I'm wrong, this is the town of Hempstead, it's not a court, and the decision as to whether or not Johnson City and whether or not a municipality can delegate away its ability to lay off in the event of financial duress is a cause for the courts, not for here. And I made a simple statement that night that based on some reading I did, that I thought that the no layoff clause would be inoperable in the event of severe economic distress. You may disagree with me. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So I want to finish one thing. So you made a FOIL request. We sent it to our FOIL officer. There was no FOIL. No documents relied upon it. I'm going to defer to the town attorney, Mr. Ra. It went through your office, through Rick Emery, the FOIL officer. Did I rely on any documents? Was there any documents that could have been submitted?
There were no documents in our files that met the request identified by the FOIL.
And that's the point.
Also, thank you very much, Mr. Councilman, for that clarification, which I've been trying for 4 months to find out about. I am a little concerned that you're relying upon a website article from 2007 or 2012. Well, 2012, and there's been subsequent cases. Are you familiar, for example, with the...
I'm not going to argue the case now, Mr. Mayor. Once again, this is the town hall. If you want, I think there's a venue a little north of here called Supreme Court. That's where you would take up the argument. It's not, this isn't a courthouse. I'm not going to argue my case with you. I made a decision to vote. I did some outside research, and I don't believe, in my opinion, my municipality, talk to your neighbor over in Floral Park. He's been there. My opinion is it is very difficult for an elected official to abrogate or to delegate away its ability to lay off in the event of financial duress.
Councilman, as far as...
I'm not going to argue the matter with you.
He gets to talk.
Well, he does, absolutely does.
Councilman, first of all, thank you for the explanation. You never gave me that explanation, and I asked you in response, you're going to explain your vote. You really didn't explain your vote the way you just did, number one. Number two, as far as relevant law, there are other people in this room besides me, just a taxpayer, I'm sure much more interested in the outcome of item number 17, which you voted in favor of. And honestly, I think you should have waited until the new supervisor came in so she would not be handcuffed. And you used that word 3 times in your statement, to my recollection. Handcuff her in the new administration.
No, that's not what I said. I very clearly said I do not want to handcuff the new administration. And in the event of financial duress, I do believe that an elected official and the town board retains the ability, and I believe the case law subsequent to Johnson City is rather clear on that. And if the supervisor would like to lay off people without financial duress, she can introduce that to this board, and we'll see what happens with that. I don't think elected officials take layoffs too easily. It's a very difficult and a very precarious way to go. So in the event of financial duress, the supervisor may want to introduce that, but we'll address that when it comes. I very clearly, and please don't ever misquote me, I said I do not want to handcuff the new administration.
I said you used the word handcuff 3 times. I did not misquote you.
No, I said I do not want to. You said using the word handcuff versus do not handcuff.
Right, you do not want to handcuff.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
That's a little different from what you just said before.
You voted for it. What are you talking about?
Supervisor, this is exactly why I think the record needs to be clarified, so that members of the public will understand it's not the Johnson study as it is in the minutes, but it is the city of Johnson City. And also, as far as FOIL requests, that if in fact there are no responsive documents, and perhaps a little explanation in the spirit of transparency would be much appreciated by members of the public. I mean, I have been asked to spend $1.50 for documents related to Be Ready. And by the way, Be Ready, was that the Labor Council that you also referred to in your discussion?
I've known Peter B. for about 35 years. I happen to have a high regard for his ability around municipal organizations. Peter, isn't it very difficult? And I was counsel to Mr. Boykin, who was Councilman Boykin back in the former Nassau County Legislature. And relying on my knowledge from back then, I said, Peter, isn't it true it's very difficult for any elected official to delegate away its ability to lay off in the event of financial duress? And he said, absolutely right.
So in conclusion, Supervisor, see I'm short on time. I think it's important that your new regime be very responsive to FOIL requests so that the town of Hempstead does not have to pay its taxpayers for their court costs when they are successful in FOIL requests in accordance with the state law, which was passed ironically on December 13th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have spoken with the town clerk to just make sure that we're really on top of our FOIL requests, and I know that her office is working diligently to respond in a timely manner. And I'm just curious, you were told you had to pay $1.50 to get some documents from Be Ready, is that correct?
My understanding, Supervisor, is that I requested the time for Harris' speech because at least the minutes of the meeting said that Harris' speech did work for the councilman and did not mention Be Ready. The only reason...
Did you pay your $1.50 and did you get the documents?
No, I did not. I did. Supervisor, I paid the day that it was disclosed that there were 6 documents from Be Ready, $1.50 to a postal money order, which was sent that day to the town clerk, actually to the FOIL office, and I still have not received those 6 pages of documents as we speak.
So you sent in your payment, yes?
That is correct, Supervisor.
Madam Clerk, will you look into that tomorrow, make sure that Mr. McInerney gets those documents?
Can you give me information to Michelle over here? Can you give your name and everything? I'll definitely look into that.
Thank you, Madam.
Of course.
I'd like to see those documents as well.
Understood.
If I could just add too, we rolled out about...
I'd like to see those documents too, because I never got your documents.
I will see whatever I can find and I will distribute copies to everybody. Okay. I'm on it.
Positive side, about a month ago, we rolled out the ability to submit a FOIL application electronically.
Yes, and Councilwoman, ironically, I used that system in order to get your FOIL request. Now,
It worked?
It didn't work well. I guess that's a term of art. Did it work that I don't know, it did not work.
Okay.
And the reason it did not work is what you just described, the process of drafting, etc. I asked for that drafting information related to the resolution that Mr. Santino apparently drafted, but they said that such document did not exist. Is that correct, Council? There's no drafting history for resolution number 17 from the December 12th, 2017 meeting?
I don't specifically remember, but I will tell you that, generally speaking, we get a direction to draft a resolution, and we're told what it's supposed to be about, and we draft it. So no, there's usually no backup documents associated with drafting a resolution.
Well, I find that interesting, sir, because, matter of fact, I did along the way ask the State Committee of Open Government about your interpretation of what a record is. And the State Committee of Open Government said that the Town of Hempstead attorney takes an overly narrow view of what a document, a record is. Are you saying that the drafting history of resolutions before this board are not records in accordance with FOIL?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm telling you, I don't recall if what backup there is on that resolution, and generally speaking, there is no backup. Resolutions get drafted because of direction from town board members, department heads. They need a resolution for A, B, or C, and we draw it. Sometimes there's a document, sometimes there's not. And I'd be interested to know, do you have something in writing from the Committee on Open Government?
Yes, it's also
that says that the town of Hempstead, town of Hempstead Attorney's Office takes a narrow review. Do you have that?
Madam Supervisor, can you give me a moment and I will quote it on the record right here? That is it.
I'm just curious, see, because we speak with Mr. Friedman 3 times a week.
Well, you do take a narrow view.
You can hand it up to the clerk, and if you want to continue this discussion afterwards, I'm sure Mr. Robert is available. Thank you. Carl Jacobs.
Good evening. Pearl Jacobs, Nostrand Gardens Civic Association, Uniondale. The Nostrand Gardens Civic Association's goal is to bring about positive quality of life transformation to Uniondale. For the past few months, there has been noticeable improvements regarding sanitation issues. Streets are being cleaned, parking lots are being swept, and code enforcement is more proactive. And we want to thank you, Supervisor Gillen, for hearing our concerns and, more than that, for taking action. Thank you very much. Attorney Ra, there is still work to do regarding residential sanitation violations. You did provide me with the town of Hempstead ordinance relating to the homeowners' responsibilities in keeping their sidewalks and out into their curbs clean. I would like to meet with you to determine if revisions or amendments are needed to the current town of Hempstead sanitation ordinance. Homeowners must be held responsible in keeping their properties clean and debris-free, and they must be informed of their responsibility. So I would like to meet with you and a few members from my board to discuss the current town ordinance and if any revisions or amendments are required to enact this actionable ordinance. Thank you. And regarding building code enforcement in Uniondale, we have a steep climb. I'm currently in communication, Supervisor Gillen, with members of your staff, Matt and Rochelle. Both have agreed to meet with the board of my civic association to discuss the plan of action to address building violations in Uniondale. I am respectfully requesting that Matt and Rochelle attend my next month's meeting with the Nostrand Gardens Civic Association to listen to our residents' concerns regarding building issues, building violations. And my next meeting is May 7th. I will send Matt another email. I would like them to be there. Last month he couldn't make it, so I'm sorry his, children were not feeling well, but hopefully Matt and Rochelle may make our next meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to put this into the record. Building Department Code Enforcement is a complaint with cases on it. You can't hear me? Okay. The Building Department Code Enforcement is complaint driven. Cases are invested within 48 hours. There have been 8,187 complaints received from January 1st, 2017 to the present, of which 754 have been from Uniondale. There have been 40,905 inspections made from January 1 through 2017 to the present, which 3,806 have been done in Uniondale. There have been 819 violations issued from January 1st, 2017 to the present, of which 906 have been issued in Uniondale. There have been 2,778 tickets issued from January 1 to 2017, January 1, 2017 to the present, of which 288 have been issued in Uniondale. There are currently 3,240 open cases in Uniondale, of which 517 are for illegal apartments. We do thank you to my building commissioner, thank you very much, and I thank you for the court enforcement and thanks all of those residents who do call in and let us know what's going on. So this is how we have been able to do all of this in Uniondale alone.
Ms. Cray? Ms. Cray, I will be stepping out for a moment. I am not leaving the meeting. I will be back promptly. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby will be handling this portion of the meeting while I have to step away for a moment.
Thank you, Mary Ellen Cray, Uniondale. Mrs. Funderburg and Mrs. Jacobs have both brought up an issue which is a major concern in Uniondale. People in Uniondale are very, very concerned about multifamily housing in single-family zones. I have a suggestion that perhaps we might consider registration of rental homes.
You have it already.
There is something like that, in the village of Hempstead, and it might be a way to start having a handle on what is happening as far as homes being rented out.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we do that already.
Yes, we do.
Commissioner? We do, right?
She's talking about the double, more people living in a home. And we do, if we get complaints, we try our best to correct those. But as you know, we cannot. If we knock on the door and they don't let us in, we cannot go into those homes. You're aware of that. And I know the superintendent also is very concerned with it. He's working with our building department on a special issue to try to see what we can do to mitigate some of that. But again, we must make sure that we follow the law.
I understand that, but what I'm asking now, in light of the comment that was made, you're saying that there is a requirement, if a home is a rental home, that it fills out a registration with the town of Hempstead as a rental home?
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Yes. That's how I understand it.
Commissioner, I've heard of it.
No. Commissioner?
So what you're saying is if a house is rented, let's say, to Hofstra students, that house is supposed to be registered with the town of Hempstead?
As far as I understand it, yes. The commissioner will be able to explain that.
Good evening. Yes, what we're doing now is we're putting together a rental registry of listing all the properties that people are renting, correct?
How do people know that they have to register their rental
They
properties?
We reach out to them. We have all multifamilies, all these different ways that we have records of. We've reached out to all of those, yes.
So then there's a form that is required. In short, supposing Mrs. X buys a house in Uniondale, decides to rent it to college students, then she is informed in some way that she is supposed to fill out a registration that house on Z Street is a rental house, and you have that paperwork?
That is correct, and it still has to remain a single-family home. Just because she's renting it out, she cannot make it a multi-family house.
Right.
You can't have key locks, you can't have separation of living space, you cannot have people sleeping in the living rooms, you cannot have two kitchens, sleeping in the basements, etc.
But in short, there is some methodology that points out to businesses that are renting out properties that they are supposed to fill out a rental form or a registration form with it. Is there a fee required with that?
Yes, there's a fee associated with it, yes.
Thank you very much. My next question is about the banner flags. I understand that there are permits for the banner flags. Our youth project usually puts one up for the summer camp. Now, do we have to come down to the building department and fill out a permit for?
Are you talking about, I know we've discussed the surfboard signs, is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something different?
the banner flags they're curved on one side and straight on the other.
Yes, those are surfboard signs. Banner signs are different. They're the ones that you can see, like the flags, they tie to a building, they run across, you see them at car, grand opening, the car stations like that. Those you can get a temporary permit for. Surfboard signs you're not allowed to have.
At all?
We do offer, is there a temporary permit for the surfboards or no?
I don't believe this requires a surfboard one, no. But for other types of signs, there are temporary.
They were all over the place. They were all over the town.
If you can give me a specific list, I'll make sure they're gone, because we aggressively go after them. Now that the weather's changing, they're gonna start coming out.
On those particular flags.
If I can, I mean, I know that one of the reasons as to why we address the surfboard signs in the past is because very often, I'm not saying every business handles it this way, but we had a lot of complaints, and I believe this was before I got here, but I've seen it. The flags are left and they become torn, ripped. Next thing you know, they're flying down the street, so it became an issue that they're not really affixed to a building or to a structure. They're kind of, freestanding, so it became an issue, a safety issue, as well as it just, once they got torn, it looked terrible.
Exactly. Most of the times they put them on the sidewalks, blocking the sidewalks, so people with strollers and walking by couldn't get through.
Yeah, it was impeding, pedestrian traffic.
So my specific question relates to the one that we put up for Uniondale Community Council's youth project on the property, and you're saying that we cannot do that for the summer.
I'm not saying that.
There's no way to get a permit or anything?
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, give me the specifics, you and I will sit and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Sorry, Valerie Lappy.
Which slip is it?
You have only one slip. We're going to take one slip from you.
I have a slip on behalf of Mr. Ed Toller, who sent me a written statement, and he's the gentleman that basically, the supervisor said that his story was false regarding an animal with a botched surgery from the animal shelter. So
you have something in writing from him?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So, can I use that first, and then I'll use my time?
Okay, you're only getting 5 minutes, period. You know that. It's going to be 5 minutes. Sorry.
I'll read quickly.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So, on behalf of Mr. Edward Toller, hi, I'm Ed Toller. We adopted a toy poodle about a year ago from the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter. She was recovering from surgery at the time for the removal of bladder stones. After we had her home for a short time, she started to fill up with urine. The shelter refused to see her and told us to contact one of the doctors on a list they gave us. We took her to an emergency facility in Westbury where they performed emergency surgery. They told us when the shelter spayed her, they wrapped her fallopian tube around her bladder instead of doing it the correct way. Also that the stones that were removed were too small to do any damage. The emergency surgery worked. She is doing nicely. Her name now is Dondi. She does have a severe case of separation anxiety. I'll skip that. He has had health conditions, heart surgery, and the additional surgery for the dog cost $10,000, plus a lot of mental suffering. I feel it is the shelter's fault, and so does the surgeon who did the corrective surgery. Whoever did the original surgery for the town of Hempstead should not be permitted to practice there anymore, as I would not like to see another family go through this or another animal shelter. I wish the supervisor was here because I'd really like to know if she still believes she's willing to state that this man is lying. So, let's jump to now, I guess I'm on my statement, right? Here we go.
When he was misidentified as a stray, picked up by the town of Hempstead, and in less than 24 hours was killed by the animal shelter, without giving notice to the owner, and without waiting the required 5 days to give Ms. De La Rosa an opportunity to find and to reclaim her
I'll stop it there. So what I wanted to say, and this is going on record, I hope, on April 13th, a year ago, 363 days ago, this is before I ever knew about the landfill cats, this is before I personally ever knew about any animal shelter issues. I saw this video, I saw this story on News 12, and this is what inspired me and really also catapulted me to get more involved with the local issues regarding the animals. So I'm speaking of Councilman Diaz-Vito, you used the word appalled regarding a staff member. I am personally appalled that, number one, we get basically chastised and now we get ignored, we meaning the animal supporting people, and it's based on saying things like, these are all allegations and that they're not proved. Yet these allegations were cast a year ago, prior to me ever even hearing of anything. So I want to ask Supervisor Gillen, she probably should stay out of the room right now, where's her proof? Where's her proof when she was saying that there's abuse and gross mismanagement and patronage jobs at the shelter? She campaigned on this. Laura, you campaigned on this. And I want to know how it is that when I send text messages now, or call or email, I get completely ignored. It's disgusting, okay? I was the one who was with her at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning at the train stations, and so was Diane Madden. And I also want to read this text into record. This was the day after the last meeting where Diane Madden, a huge animal advocate, was verbally assaulted in the hallway by this shelter liaison who has no shelter experience. Laura, everyone is going ballistic over the video of Rebecca verbally attacking Diane from yesterday. She called her, she accused her of being a dog murderer, okay? And I said, I think back to how much Diane did for you and your campaign, how many people she rounded up, and how much time she devoted to you, and I am just stunned over what went down yesterday. She's the enemy now? How is it okay for Rebecca to slander her? We have real problems here. I hope you're removing Rebecca as the shelter liaison. I'm just going to finish. In one moment of time, she alienated all of the advocates and no one trusts her. We feel she is not unbiased and that she has somehow labeled Diane as the bad guy. Everything about her was groundless and the opposite of the truth. I read the lawsuit. Has she? You told us you can't act on allegations, and yet here's your shelter liaison casting the biggest and most hurtful allegation of them all.
Your time is up now.
Okay, I'm almost done. To call Diane a dog killer and say she wants to euthanize animals is the lowest of all blows. It breaks my heart to see your biggest defender and believer become the target. She did not deserve that, and I want to know what you're going to do about it. She deserves an apology.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to thank you actually because in a surprising twist, we had a meeting and I want to compliment not only him, but also his staff, specifically Rich Regina, for actually communicating with me and getting back to me, and that's really something that we ask for and respect.
Okay. Ms. Natalie Gary. Mrs. Natalie Gary.
Hi, Natalie Gary, Roosevelt resident. Hey, I just had a couple of questions. Actually, I was at Weston Beef yesterday. I was speaking with the nice manager there. His concern was that he has like these carts, and he wanted to know. He said he's been trying to talk with the town of Hempstead. I don't know if he did, if he didn't, but that the carts are being, taken into the community. He wanted to see if he can get a area where the carts, only once they go out to perimeters, that they stop moving. So just wanted to bring this to your attention, Councilwoman, because of the fact that he said that he claimed that Western Beef has made an application or a conversation about it. And I just wanted to kind of like let you know that they are having that problem with their carts being taken and all this other kind of stuff. So just wanted to just make you aware of it.
That's something that they need to purchase themselves. Like they have in other stores, you see them. They have a special lock on them so that if they go to certain places, you can't move them. Right. That's something, we cannot pay for that. That's something they can do.
Well, he said that he made the application to be able to install it, and he didn't get approval of it or something.
Well,
I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, maybe he can speak to our building department, right, or he does it, so he can see if it's, gonna be a problem.
Right. And the other thing is that the Western Beach parking lot is constantly filthy. So I don't know if that's someone else's that's responsibility to take care of that parking lot.
We'll have to clean that.
I mean, constantly. I mean, there's not even garbage cans there for the patrons to put their garbage in. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. The other question is what are they doing with the vitalization downtown Roosevelt? I see they're doing everywhere else, but in terms of new street lighting, new facade for the business owners, just concerned that we don't want to be the pink elephant again, if you know what I mean, Councilwoman, with the building that was there for many years, but the commercial businesses that are there, something needs to be done in terms of improvement, and I don't know if that's the county's responsibility.
No, it's ours, but we have done a lot of renovation in the Roosevelt. If the merchant does not wish to pay the 50%, then we can. So they have to pay 50% of the cost. That's federal law.
Okay, so the merchant has to pay 50% in order towards the facade program? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that we can talk to with the merchants. Yeah. The other thing is, speaking earlier about the homes, that they were talking about the security and making sure that they're safe. And I'm not really aware that you're aware that there's close to almost 200, abandoned homes in Roosevelt. And I just wanted to make sure that, and I have the list, and I'm glad to give it to you.
Bring it to us.
Yes, and I just want to make sure that the safety of those homes, if the firefighters come near, if somebody has a violation or whatever it is, that those are protected, just like the 2 homes that were protected today. If we could incorporate those, and I'll be glad to give you all the list of those homes.
We certainly will get them.
That's really what I have to say, and I really appreciate everything today. Thank you.
All right, the next person is Miss Wilhelmina Thunderberg. You got it right. We get paid well for this.
Oh, you can't hear me now, huh? I'm pretty big here. I don't know why not. But I'm going to talk about quite a few things that's happening in Roosevelt that really, really need to be attended to. Number one, what is going on with our community field office there on Nassau Road? Councilwoman, I think you need to visit it and really see what's going on in there, because at some point in time, we could go there and leave any complaints and would be forwarded to your office. I don't think that's one of the things that's being done right now. And the code enforcers, how many are in Roosevelt? Because I tell you, all they got to do is ride through Roosevelt during the day. They don't have to wait for nighttime. And and I hear the gentleman speaking, and I hear you saying you can't go in people's homes. Yeah, no, you don't have to go in their homes. I mean, we all know that when you ride around and you see 3 and 4 television attachment on people's homes, that there are more than one family living in that house. There are other ways you can find out how many families are living in a house. You can check the mail that comes there. The code enforcement, they need to come out and start looking, because I'm telling you, Roosevelt is really and truly getting really overcrowded, okay? And I'm speaking from what I know, not what somebody's telling me, because I'm up late at night, I drive around, I look, and I see, and I'm telling you, you can barely get down the street, especially when it starts around 5 o'clock in the evening. I mean, you can't even see the curbing. That's how many cars are parked. And I know it's not only Roosevelt. And on the street that I live on, you can really, really, really see the difference Because at the end of my street is a sanitation department, there's a school, and I mean, these cars are coming back and forth, and you really and truly, you gotta stop. There's no way that you can have two cars passing each other on East Clinton. And that's really need to be taken into consideration. And it doesn't mean that you can't find out that more than two families in a home. I mean, there's a way for you to find out that there's more than two families. Really and truly, you got 3, 4, 5, 6 families in a home, okay? And somebody need to do something about this. I mean, we pay our taxes, and one other thing that's happening in Roosevelt, and I haven't told you about this yet, but even the postman, I mean, when he comes to deliver your mail, he come up your driveway, he go back across your lawn, you know, and when you say, look, please don't walk on my grass, you know, go back down the way you came. Oh, we have orders and we take the shortest route to the next house. I have been in such a big argument with the guy. He went back to his office and to the post office and he said he was threatened. Because I told him, if you ever walk across my grass again, it's going to be a problem. But see, I pay the landscaper to come out and keep my yard up. And if someone is walking across your yard every single day, 6 days a week, because the mailman comes 6 days a week, he's going to put a permanent pad on your yard, okay? And somebody needs to be something to be done. They tell you, write a letter, bring it to the post office, and we'll make sure we don't go across your yard. I want to know, and I'm going to do it. I've been out of town a lot because I had a lot of sickness and a lot of things going in my community and with my family, and I haven't been around too much. But I want to make it a purpose to go to Garden City, East Meadow, Merritt, and all these post offices right around me, and see if that's really and truly is coming from the postmasters, that these postal workers take the closest route to get to the next house, because I don't think it's true. And something needs to be done. I mean, yes, I live in a minority neighborhood, and I'm happy to be there. I enjoy being in my neighborhood. I enjoy getting up to the next door and seeing people that look like me. But I'm going to tell you something. The people that don't look like me, who's supposed to be in control and supposed to be governing things and not doing their job, and I know they're not, because I travel all around and I have friends in other neighborhoods. So I'm telling you, something has to be done. And we need to start with the Roosevelt Community Field Office, because they're not doing their job from there either, you know. And I want to make another couple questions. I'm not going to get up right now because I see other people come and stay. One guy has been there for 10 minutes, so I'm going to talk to him. Okay, number 2. Okay, give me 2 minutes. All right, I'll take the 2. That's what you'll give me. But I hope I'm finished with 2 minutes.
Why don't you say that, listen, and come sit in the office and talk to us?
One thing I want to ask you. How is the program for the African American program, who is selected to coordinate that program for our people? Because I'm telling you, the last one, I don't know who did it, and I don't know who did the one before that. I know it wasn't Councilwoman Goose, because when she was in charge of that program, it looked like us, okay? Now, as I sit and I look at this board, I don't see a person up there that's more qualified to put together a program for the African American community than Councilwoman Goose. And I want to know, why isn't she in charge of that program?
What program are you talking about?
The one that we had for the African American Week.
It was done in conjunction with Dorothy Goosby's office.
Oh, no. No, it wasn't, because I was all
on my staff. It was not done. Only one of my staff worked with that program. I was not in charge of it. I don't understand this anymore, because if I do, you'll hear it.
I'm just saying, the next year come up.
Dorothy Goosby can be completely in charge. We reached out to her office. She can run the program. That's totally fine. We completely reached out to her office and told her that she could pick out whoever she wanted. I think you picked out the head nominee. You picked out the nominees. You picked out the award winners. So she could do whatever she wants, and that's what we said this year, and that's what we'll say next year. She can be in charge of that program.
I'm not going to say anything. First of all, we should have different. It should have been different. But anyway, I'm not taking over everything.
It can't be
different than what it was this past year, call me up and I'll make sure it's right, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate it. You can be involved.
You're doing a good job.
Thank
You gotta
you.
look around and get people to come in and talk to, and come to the community and listen to what people say. So look like you've done a great job.
Thank you. Joyce Holly.
She went to bed.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor.
Good evening.
Councilwoman Christie, and other board members. Thank you. My name is Joyce Holly. I'm a lifetime resident here in the village of Hempstead. I'm a 21-year member of Hempstead Village volunteer fire department. And I've been employed by the Village of Hempstead Police Department, specifically traffic, since 2004. So I live, breathe, and enjoy Hempstead. I'm here to represent one Jenna Bernard and Brittany Bernard, lifetime residents as well. Jenna communicated with the posting you had today in reference of the seasonal employees. She contacted that website, I believe, and at some point she did receive one of those automated responses. The concern is generated because Brittany Bernard and Jenna Bernard are part of the forgotten employees of the village, forgotten employees of the town of Hempstead. Jenna has been employed by the town of Hempstead for 14 years, and Brittany almost 10 years. However, with the part-time status, it's impossible. Seasonal, part-time, whatever nomenclature you choose to use, is inadequate. My question is, what do you have in place? What will you put in place to assist those people such as they are? Well, you're the forgotten people, because a job fair on Saturday does not help them. They've dropped from 40, well, their hours in truth have vacillated over the years. However, the last X amount of years, there's a steady decline. Financially, people cannot make it with 19 hours. You have a family, that's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. Job fair, there was some issue in terms of how many jobs you have available on Saturdays to that point, something to that effect. I don't remember verbatim. The number was given to the young lady who proposed that question. The point is, what do you have in place? What will you put in place to address the forgotten, overlooked, whatever name you want to use, to help individuals such as these? They need an answer. They need assistance. Now, she did write a letter to you, and again, an automated response came back promising that it would be addressed. I'm here to represent them both, to ask you directly, what plans do you have in place to help, assist, propel the forgotten individuals of this town of Hempstead? They've been around a long time, 14 and 10, it's a long time. They're trying to hang in there, it's not working, not working. How can you help?
So I don't know anything in particular about these particular individuals, but if you would see Ms. Beanbender, I'll take your information and we'll look into them. We do have something called the Tosner list, which is a list which we have employees who are part-time who are eligible to be made full-time employees. I don't know, they may be on that list, they may not be on the list, I'm not sure.
I've been advised that once you are on that list with the 19 hours max, it's designed that you won't need the desired hours to get full-time. So it's a catch-22. And that's why they're soliciting your assistance, and that's why I'm here to represent them.
Thank you. I'd be happy to look into it if you just give the information and we'll...
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, are you saying that they've worked here for all these years, just 19 hours?
Yes, it's been declining. At one point, way back when, there was a time when they were 40, but it went to 24, then 19, and went back to 16, 14, and then now it's 19 for the last several years.
So they're not on
So it's been vacillating. They're not on that list that you're referring to because you have to have enough hours to warrant you being placed on said list. Well, if I'm only making 16 hours, I'll never accrue enough hours, to make the said list. And therein lies the issue. It's a catch-22. Hence, I'm here to represent them and inquire what is the answer. How do individuals such as they, who are between a rock and a hard place, literally, get assistance? Because you're soliciting for a job fair on Saturday, you have postings on the internet. What happens to those people who are in place and have been 14 and 10 years? Where do they fall? Yes, between the cracks. And the answer is needed. Assistance is needed. Not just these two individuals. They are not the only ones. I'm here to represent these two, but there are others as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lucille Defina.
By the way, there were some people at the animal shelter also who've been working part-time that have been waiting for full-time, so it's across the board. Before I get into the things I want to talk about, I just want to ask, how can one person get help for a very elderly woman who has 4 cats in need of TNR? Something very simple, but it seems impossible. Lives in Oceanside, elderly woman. She is crying out for help, called the animal shelter, and in spite of what you think, that everything is so hunky-dory, it's impossible to get help.
You said she lives in Oceanside?
Lives in
I
Oceanside.
don't think she's contacted my office yet, but if you want to give the
No,
information.
she's in her 80s. She calls the shelter. They told her she has to send someone in.
Do you have her contact info?
I have her social worker's name. How can we get this done?
Give it to Matt, he will give a call from my office, being that she lives in Oceanside.
What's her name? What's the name?
The woman's name who's a social worker is Loretta.
That's who called the animal shelter?
No, the elderly woman called, and she sent someone to pick up the trap, gave $85 deposit for 1 trap, and there's 4 cats. So she's an elderly woman, she can't do this. She puts out this 1 trap, 4 cats are not going to go in there. There has to be 4 traps at one time. She has to stop feeding. She needs help. She's in her 80s.
See, that's what happens. Many times the things are happening in our districts, we don't know about it. If you don't let us know, we can help you.
But we shouldn't have to come here and ask you, but your animal shelter.
All you have to do is call my office. Call his, if it's in my district, it's his, call his office. Call me, we have staff that will take care of it for us.
This shouldn't be happening. You should be able to call your animal shelter. I shouldn't have to come here to a microphone and discuss it at a town board.
You don't have to, just call us.
But me? So the person has to finally reach me, and then I have to call a town board. Isn't that silly? You have an animal shelter. You have a TNR program. Why do some people get carte blanche, revolving door, non-stop, free spay neuter? You have 2 or 3 trappers who come in whenever they want and trap all their cats that they trap for free, and then you have residents calling you, begging for help, that get nothing. We've been telling you this for a long, long time. Way before Laura got here, and it's still the same, and it's continuing. It's like if you're one of the favorites, if you have it in, if you know Dr. Siegel, then you're going to get TNR. But if you don't have it in, and if you don't make sure you treat these guys really nice and maybe bring them cupcakes or something, you're not getting TNR. Now, this has got to stop. And I shouldn't need to come here, and as a town board, I shouldn't need to have to call you. I shouldn't even be involved. Okay. So what are we going to do to get this woman help? I'm going to give Matt her number.
Matt, just raise your hand, please.
I know Matt. Oh, it's a different, okay, we went to the wrong Matt. Okay.
I'll come see you.
Okay, thank you. All right. The other thing is, Laura, I have to say to you, because I heard you say you gave a directive to settle all these lawsuits. I mean, just looking at some of these bills and claim forms, and do you, at one point you did want to settle all the lawsuits involved with the animal shelter, but now, seeing how you treated Diane when she was up there, maybe this is not the case. Maybe now you don't want to settle these lawsuits because these lawsuits are going full force.
Well, just so you know, lawsuits are settled upon the recommendation of council and in conjunction with the town board. They all have to agree to settle a lawsuit. It's not one person who decides to settle a lawsuit. With respect to the free air case, we are in settlement discussions, and I've spoken to several members of the town board about a potential resolution of that, as well as with our town attorney. I've been talking to Mr. Ra about settlement of other litigation, but I can't get into the details of those.
But the feeling that I got after seeing how you treated Diane, I would guess, my guess would be that you'd rather not settle the lawsuit because it seems like the animal shelter wants to keep her far, far away.
Like I said, it's not up to me, it's up to the town board about whether or not we resolve lawsuits. It's voted on by the town board.
You have a very strong say, I would think.
I have one vote just like everybody else on this board.
That's why we asked you if you have problems. He has one vote, I have one vote, everybody up here, because except for you. All of us. They don't have a vote. So that's why I said we have councilman addition. If you have a problem in addition, let us know we're willing to help.
Well, you know we have a problem in this district regarding the animal shelter. There's like you'll help. You know, at this point, I'm a little puzzled as to who the problem is, what the problem is. I mean, especially when Diane worked really hard to get Lori Gillen where she is, and then your new shelter liaison is accusing her and is treating her the way she was treated in 2009, and you suddenly seem to share the same feelings. So I'm, you know, who's against settling the lawsuit at this point? I'm not so sure. But these lawsuits are going really strong, and it does not appear to be that anyone wants to settle lawsuits. And the other thing I just want to say about the animals, because that's most important. I understand you feel very good about putting in cameras, but I have to tell you, and again, you said that's what we're here for, there are still cats suffering horribly. They come into the shelter, and you can check on all this if you really, but I'm asking you to check on it or get somebody to check on it. Please, not the people who've been checking on it before. Because I've said it to them and either they don't get it, they don't see it, or they don't want to see it. Cats are coming into the shelter and they are not being given the proper medical the way they should immediately. Cats get stressed, especially in cages. Cats get sick immediately. That's why it's very important not to keep them caged for too long. Keep them comfortable, comfort them. They've been deprived medical, and after a few days of not being seen, not being examined, if it's not noticed and diagnosed that there is a problem, they can die within days. If you look at your records, you look at your medical records from the animal shelter, this is a pattern that has been going on for a long time. Cats come in, they are not being treated. You said you want the volunteers to start logging everything in. Well, you have to get your whole staff to start logging everything in. When cats come in, there has to be immediate intake of procedures and testing and looking at the cat every day, and do not wait till the 4th or 5th day, because this is the pattern. Within a week or 10 days later, the cat is sent to one of your 2 emergency vets, either the central vet or that other one in Farmingdale, and then Dr. Siegel approves them to be put to sleep. Every medical record I look at looks like this. If that cat was taken care of properly when it came in, and wasn't so stressed out, and probably stopped eating and starved itself for 3 days before he sent it to a vet under emergency care a week later, and then said, oh, have to put it down, it's inhumane to keep him alive. That's a pattern that's happening over and over again. If you just look into this, you will see. And it really needs to be addressed right away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Okay, that concludes this evening's town board meeting. Everybody get home safely.